I don't know who you are or where you are on your trading journey, but if you've ever lost sleep, ever felt stressed, ever stared at the chart and felt completely lost, then this episode is for you. I'm a trader, not the most successful one, not someone who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I am someone who once fell into a psychological crisis because of the very trades I thought would bring me freedom. There's one thing I've learned through it all. The market doesn't kill anyone. It's the expectations and the pressure to always win that drain us to the core. Today's podcast isn't here to teach you how to trade. It's to share honestly, with no sugarcoating, how I got through one of the darkest phases of my life. If you're feeling exhausted from the market, I hope you'll listen to the end. Maybe, just maybe, something in here will resonate with you. And if this podcast touches you, don't forget to subscribe, so I'll have a reason to keep sharing. One like, one share, might just be what someone else needs during a sleepless night like the ones I used to have. Thank you for being here. Now, let's begin. I still vividly remember a very ordinary day, which turned out to be an extraordinary turning point in my life. That morning, I jumped out of bed before the alarm even had a chance to ring. Not out of excitement, but because my mind had never truly rested. I turned on my computer, stared at the chart. My thoughts were like an old computer with too many tabs open. EUR/USD had just dropped hard. GBP/JPY was moving sideways, and in my head there was only one word: recover. I sat there from morning until well past midnight, no proper meals, no movement, not even noticing the sun had risen and set. My eyes burned, my heart raced, my emotions were as chaotic as a red candle in a sea of green. Every price spike felt like a jolt to my chest. Every loss felt like pieces of my soul were being ripped out. Day after day, just like that. I became irritable. A simple question from a loved one was enough to make me snap. I blamed others for not understanding me, but in truth, I didn't understand myself either. I wasn't me anymore. I no longer enjoyed music, no longer cared about things that used to bring me joy. I only knew how to stare at the charts, as if taking my eyes off them would cause the world to collapse. I used to think, if I don't trade, what do I have left? And that was the question that jolted me. That's when I realized I wasn't trading for freedom. I was trading out of fear. I wasn't seeking profit. I was searching for a reason to feel like I still had worth. Trading, at that time, wasn't a tool. It was a shackle, a prison I locked myself into and called passion. Someone once said, if the market causes you to lose yourself, then even if you're making money, you're still the loser. I began to see that losing a trade isn't as dangerous as winning and becoming dependent. And that's when I knew I needed a new path. Not to abandon trading, but to find myself within it. We don't come to the market to be saved. We come here to learn how to master ourselves in a world that never stops moving. After all those days of holding on to trades, tossing and turning and suffocating myself under invisible pressure, I came to a simple yet heartbreaking realization. The market is not wrong. It has no emotions. It doesn't know who you are. It doesn't care that you just blew your account, quit your job, or argued with your loved one because of a losing trade. The market does only one thing. It moves. I was the problem. We are the problem. Those of us who come to the market with burning hearts, thin wallets, and irrational expectations, we are the seeds of our own suffering. I used to look at the chart as if it were a map to salvation. Every candlestick, every signal felt like a promise of a richer, freer tomorrow. But the truth is, what suffocated me wasn't the market. It was my own mind, crowded with expectations and fear. We don't fall because the price goes against us. We fall because we put all our hope into each trade. We fall because we believe that if this one wins, our life will change. And when it doesn't, we don't just lose money. We lose direction. We lose what little peace we had. Truly seasoned traders all say the same thing. Trading with emotions is the fastest road to hell, because in that state, you're no longer analyzing, you're guessing to satisfy your ego. You're no longer managing risk, you're gambling everything to prove you're right. I was once that person. And I had heard this line many times before, until I finally experienced it myself. If you don't learn to stay out of the market when necessary, the market will soon force you out in the most painful way. Trading is an art of letting go, not giving up, but letting go of attachment. When you no longer need the market to feel worthy, that's when you truly start to know how to trade. And to get there, I had to learn to pause, to take a step back, to see more clearly what it is I'm truly chasing. Sometimes we don't awaken because of a big shock, but because of a small, ordinary moment that tightens the heart. That night, I had just cut a loss on a trade I had pinned my hopes on all week. Closing that trade didn't just cost me money, it cost me control. It stripped away the feeling that I had a grip on anything in my life. When a loved one gently asked, "Why do you look so tired today?" I snapped. Not loudly, but just enough for their eyes to change. The question was meant with care, but it made me explode because I was losing, and I hated being seen as someone who loses. Right at that moment, something in me cracked. I could see clearly that I was no longer myself. I no longer knew where the line was between work and emotion, between trading and living. I wasn't living. I was enduring. That night, I tossed and turned, not because of the charts, but because of a question that kept repeating in my head. If I keep living like this for another 3 years, 5 years, who will I become? There was no need for an answer. Just imagining it was enough to chill me to the bone. We often think the market teaches us how to analyze, how to win. But the greatest lesson it quietly teaches is this: how to recognize when we're lost. When you live as someone, constantly holding on, constantly tense, wearing yourself down day after day over a chart, even if you win the trade, you're still losing. Losing the human part of yourself. Enlightenment didn't come because I was great. It came because I was tired. And when a person gets tired enough, they either collapse or change. I chose to change. Not because I was strong, but because I began to understand if I didn't want trading to take my life away, I had to stop treating trading as if it were my whole life. And from that moment on, I started to look inward, to find myself again, among the endless waves of red and green. There's one thing I learned after rising from that dark phase. Recovery isn't about waiting for a miracle. It's about building habits that help you return to a balanced state. And that started with things that, at first glance, had nothing to do with trading at all. I began by not opening the chart on weekends. It sounds simple, but back then it was a real challenge for me. I was used to always doing something, always checking, analyzing, predicting. But it turns out resting properly is also a skill that every trader must learn. Doing nothing doesn't mean being lazy. It means knowing when your mind needs to recover. Like a predator, it doesn't strike all the time. Sometimes it lies still, conserves energy, steps back to see its prey more clearly. I also started writing a trading journal, not to show off winning trades, but to reflect on my state of mind, the reasoning behind each decision. I began asking myself, why did I take this trade? What was I feeling at that moment? Did I actually follow my plan? Writing is a magical act. It turns the vague mess in your head into clear lines on paper. And sometimes, only when you see it written down, do you realize whether you were trading with your head or with your heart. Then I started running. Every morning, 5K, not much, just enough to feel that my body still breathes. Every afternoon I'd meditate for 10 minutes. No apps, no fancy methods, just sitting still and listening to my breath. Those moments reminded me that beyond the wins, beyond the charts, I am still alive. Most importantly, I trained myself in one art, the art of doing nothing. When the market showed no clear trend, when my mind was unsure, I didn't force myself to take a trade. I accepted being on the sidelines because I understood. Staying out isn't giving up, it's an act of self-control. And it was those small habits bit by bit that brought me back. Not to become a super profitable trader, but to become a person who knows how to walk through the market without losing himself.